Aeneid Book 2, lines 559 to 582. In this scene, we see Aeneas going through the city of Troy as it is falling around him, his imagination running away with him as he's processing the horror that he has just seen. Neoptolemus, the son of Achilles, murdering Priam, the king of Troy, at an altar in violation of the rules of war and religious behavior. We begin but Siwas horror, savage horror, circumstatit, surrounded me then at first. The Siwas horror, by the way, literally surrounds the verb circumstatit. Obstipuit, I was gobsmacked, or I was struck. Imago here, third declension, tricky lady. That's the nominative singular, and it's the subject of subiit. The image of my dear father, genitor, sire, subiit, approached, in my mind understood. Ut plus this indicative is translated as usual as. As I saw the king, Aequalum here means of the same age, and here it's the same age, about the same age as his own father, Anchises. Exhalantem here, present active participle modifying regem, breathing out his life, again dying. Crudeli vulnere here, on account of a cruel wound, or perhaps by means of a cruel wound. Crudeli here can also mean bloody. Subiit, again, shows up here, a nice example of anaphora, what also pops into his head. Subiit, deserta creusa. Now his wife, that's right, he has a wife. He conveniently forgets her, though. She was left behind at the house, and he's realizing, oh, I've got a wife. The creusa, the deserted creusa has approached in my mind. And the direpta domus here. Now remember, domus is a feminine noun, fourth declension feminine noun, one of the few fourth declension feminine nouns there are. And so therefore direpta, feminine nominative singular, modifies it. The collapsed house and the kasos here, of course, meaning the misfortune. Pariuli of small Iulus. Now remember, when Virgil uses Iulus instead of Ascanius, sometimes it's for meter, but it's also a reminder that if Iulus doesn't make it out of Troy, the gens Iulia, aka Julius Caesar, and his descendants don't make it to Troy, don't make it to Rome as well. Respicio, I look back, and lustro usually means to bathe or ritually purify oneself. Here, it's something more along the lines of I survey. So I kind of look closely. I survey quae copia. Now, since we're translating lustro, taking it as almost more or less a verb of the head, this question word quae is going to give us a subjunctive for an indirect question. I survey what supply of men, understood, is circum around me. Deseruere here is indicative. It is a third person plural, perfect, active, indicative. They have deserted. Omnes, everybody, worn out, has fled, has deserted. And this is a pretty brutal, misere here, another third person plural perfect, active, indicative, syncopated form of miserunt. And a third verb here, third person plural, perfect, active, indicative of dodari deity. So everyone worn out has deserted. And misere, again, this has nothing to do with the adjective miser, meaning miserable. However, I can't help but think that there is a little bit of a pun going on here, because truly they are wretched. They have sent their bodies saltu in a leap, by means of a leap. This is not a supine. This is a fourth declension noun in the ablative case. In a leap ad terram, to the ground. Or they have given their weak, bodies understood, dative to the fires. So as he's seeing Troy fall around him, those who are so weary from fighting for 10 years, for fighting during the course of this day, from so much disappointment after thinking that they had won, they had finally prevailed, now they give in to their sickness, their exhaustion, mental and physical. They fall from the walls of the city. Yamque. And now, areo, to this point. Now, the verb super sum, compound verb, literally, I am super, above. Super sum means to be a survivor. Now, we have cut it in two and placed a word between it. Unbefreaking-leavable. That's right, we have an example of Mimesis here. To this point, I was the only survivor. I alone survived. Cum here plus the indicative aspicio must be translated as when. When. Now we're going to delay all the way to 3 lines down as a slow reveal. What does he spy with his little eye? The limina vestae. Literally it's the threshold of Vesta, but here it's the threshold of her temple, her shrine. So again, when the shrine of Vesta, somebody is servantem it, and they are tacitam, secretly or quiet, latentem, hiding out. Up until this point, we knew that somebody is either guarding, or probably better in this context here, lurking, hanging about, like a guard might almost. But with tacitam, we now know that it is a woman, because we have a feminine accusative singular, or at the very least something feminine. Secreta in sede, in a secret place, literally in a secret seat. Hiding, and finally we have the big reveal, Tindarida. Or really, is it a big reveal? Because this is not her name, Helen of Sparta, but her patronymic. Very interesting choice for Virgil to use the patronymic here instead of her name. Now, it could be metris causa, could be a variety of things. I personally happen to think that it's very unusual, certainly in ancient literature, for a woman to have the patronymic for her. And as you may know, there are 2 fathers of Helen, her immortal godfather, Jupiter, and her mortal father, who actually raised her, Tyndareus. Well, why do you think that Virgil uses the mortal's father as the patronymic and not the daughter of Jupiter? More on that in class. So, to recap, and now, to this point, or at this time, I was alone, the survivor, when I notice the threshold of Vesta. Somebody keeping watch over it or lurking there. I spy someone lurking at or protecting the threshold of Vesta. And quiet latentem, hiding out in a secret place. And here's the big reveal, Tindarida in opposition to Cervantem. Cervantem here modifying Tindarida, the daughter of Tindarius, that is Helen. Dant here, the verb, indicative. Incendia is its subject. Fires give clear light, dative, indirect object, to someone arrowing, wandering, passing by, and here and there, carrying, again, dative, indirect object, present active participle, carrying their eyes per conta through the whole thing, through the whole image. Illa, here referring to Helen, she, and we again have delayed our verb. Infestos sibi. We have to wait all the way till the 2 lines down for the participle, the present active participle modifying it. Metuens is fearing pry in advance, so anticipating, fearing in a way, fearing in advance 3 things. The Trojans, hostile to her on account of the overturned citadel of Troy. That the Trojans are not happy that she has brought the Greek forces to them and brought about the Trojan War. So that is number 1 thing she fears in advance. Thing number 2 she fears in advance is the poenam, the punishment of the Greeks. So again, the Greeks unhappy that they had to chase her all the way across the Aegean to bring her back to her husband at Sparta. And the third thing she fears is the iras, the anger. Again, this is a poetic plural, so the rage of her deserted husband, meaning Menelaus. So she fears fearing in advance 3 things. Trojans, hostile to her on account of the overturned Pergama, citadel of Troy. And here, with Infestos modifying Tukros and Eversa modifying Pergama, we have chiasmos, ebi then be a word order. Woo! So again, fearing all these things in advance, the communis Aeneis is in opposition again to Illa, who she is, this daughter of Eupater / Tindarius. She is described as the common Fury. Now, the Furies in mythology are the women or female figures who are sent to bring punishment to the haughty, to the arrogant, to those who are criminal, who have criminally trespassed, brought murder to a family member, so forth and so on. And so here she is the common Fury of Troy and her own people, her own homeland. So both people, both Troy and its enemies, she is the Fury of them. She is the punishment of them, the common punishment. Abdiderat, here, perfect indicative, so you must use a had. She had concealed herself, se says just the poetic alternate form of se, the reflexive pronoun. She had concealed herself and was sitting unseen / hated at the altars, ablative of place where. Ex arcere here, another perfect active indicative, third person plural, syncopated form. Ignis, fires burned. Animo here, in my mind. So here we have not a physical manifestation of fires all throughout the city, but in Aeneas, our narrator's own mind. Fires burned in my mind. And ira, anger, subit, approaches. Much like the fear had approached in his mind, anger now approaches. Anger approaches to do two things: to avenge my falling city, country. Remember, it is falling down right around him. And to exact sceleratas poenas. Now, sumo poena is to exact a punishment. Scelerata here, skelos is criminal, something that is wicked, that is almost impious here. He is thinking about doing to Helen what he has just witnessed Neoptolemus doing to Priam, to exact wicked punishments at an altar of Vesta. Olkiski, by the way, is from deponent verb olkiskor olkuski, and therefore that looks passive but translates active. That is my infinitive there. Skilliket here, very sarcastic. Of course, haik incolumis. It is feminine nominative singular, is referring to Helen. Incolumis here is feminine as well, modifying the understood Helen. This one, aspiciat here, future active indicative. 1 and 2 use bo be boo, 4 and 3, 1a, 5e, will see unharmed Sparta and her homeland Mycenae, which is strange because actually that's not her homeland. That's the home city of her brother-in-law Agamemnon, but it works with the meter. And she will go as a queen, because remember, as the wife of Menelaus, she is the queen of Sparta. Parto triumpho. Now, parto here is a perfect passive participle in the ablative case, modifying triumpho, a noun in the ablative case. Ablative noun, ablative participle in a sentence for no good reason. That's right, ablative absolute. Absolutely. This is a very interesting verb. Pario means to give birth to. It gives us words like partum, postpartum. And so this queen here, after her triumph, has been birthed. Again, continuing that imagery that we saw with the Trojan horse, that the birth of the Greek victory here, and here she's giving birth to a triumph. Continuing what Aeneas supposes she will see. She will see her husband and her home and her father's, meaning elders, most presumably, although she does have two fathers, two daddies, to be fair, and her children. Now, she does have a daughter, but I don't know of any other children. Comitata here is a perfect participle surrounded by a mob, by a throng of Trojans, and by Phrygian attendants. Dative of agent, ablative of means, because technically turba is a thing and not people. It can go in the ablative case. Now here we have some rhetorical questions. These are future active indicative, future perfect active indicative. Will Priam have died by means of a weapon? In vain understood. Will Troy have burned by fire? Ablative means. Will the Dardanium litus, the Trojan shore, completely Totians, have sweated? Now, this is a future perfect indicative syncopated form, sudaverit. Will the Trojan shore completely have sweated with blood? Ablative of cause means. Non ita, let it not be thus.